Okay, we're learning a Sicha of Abrengen from Tafshin Chavdal, 1964, on Shabbos Parshas Yisro. I believe also this Farbrengen was in honor of some Hasidim that got out of Russia at the time, the Mendel Futerfas and others. The Rebbe was Farbrengen, I think, and they're coming out of prison. That's out of confinement over there. Let's bring up the Sicha. Let's see if this works. Okay, so Sicha Parshas Yisro, Shabbos Parshas Yisro, Chav Daled, Tavshin Chav Daled, 1964. So the Rebbe says like this. The first paragraph is going to be shorthand because it's just a summary of what the Rebbe spoke about and was later edited in the Likutei Sichos. Sometimes the Torah Menachem will just give a short version of the Rebbe's talk and expect for you to read the full text of the edited Sicha in the other publication of the Likutei Sichos. So in Nisbarim Reb Zal, the Rebbe explains the saying of the rabbis. Al pasuk on the verse Vayishma Yisro, that Yisro you heard, Ma Shmu Shama Uba. What did Yisro hear that causes him to come to the desert to meet Moshe, his son-in-law, and Klal Yisrael? So it says Kriyos Yamsuf and Machamas Amalek. He heard about the splitting of the Red Sea and the war with Amalek. Behegdim Bir Shem Yisro. In that talk, the Rebbe talks about first, what is the name Yisro? Why was he called Yisro? Which means yeser, addition. Hashem she yeser pasha achas b'Torah, because of on account Yisro's guidance. There's an extra portion in the Torah. That's the portion that deals with the judges. Yisro advises Moshe to set aside judges. Hey, Aaron. Yisro Hashem sheyeser b'maisim tovim. Also, yeser, the idea of yeser is that addition in the part of Torah that he adds with his guidance to Moshe, and Yisro also Yisro for himself that he adds in good deeds. That he changed, he made an absolute 180 from his behavior in the wisdoms and actions of the other side. He was a kohen midyan. He was a, like it says, he was a kohen. He was a priest to avodah zarah, to turn himself over to kedusha, to holiness. Matan Torah, and this is all as a preparation to Matan Torah. In order for him to get ready for Matan Torah, he had to go out of his own limitations. He had to go to the midbar. He couldn't stay where he was. In order to make the transformation, one is in the addition of Torah, and also specifically within himself, to transform himself from being a kohen midyan, from being a priest for avodah zarah, to becoming a person who says Ati Daiti, I know Ki Gadol Hashem Mikol Ekim, that God is the greatest, and has brought down the medrash that until Yisro said that, they couldn't be Matan Torah. But he had to go out of his own limitations in order to come to the midbar, out of his own comfort zone, to make that transformation. That's what it means. What did he hear that made him come, leave his comfort zone and get out of his limitations? The question that the Rebbe speaks of in the Sicha is, why is the question, why does the Chazal say, Ma Shmu Hashem Ba? What did he hear that he came, and not what did he hear and he converted? Nisgar means to convert. Ki agir hayu b'gla shama, as kol asher asa likim lo yishli Yisrael. And the reason he converted was what he heard, all the miracles God did to the Jewish people and Moshe. Kriyas Yamsuf, Bitul Hagbos, Mechitzas, the Yam Yabasha, Helam Vigilu. But when he heard about the splitting of the Red Sea, which the splitting of the Red Sea itself breaks the limitations of nature, because water is supposed to flow and cover over the sea base, and nevertheless it split open and revealed the dry land under the sea, which is not natural. And he heard about Mechamas Amalek. We're not going to read the footnotes. Mechamas Amalek, Nitzachin al Amalek Shmikaru Meinei Yitziyam Miditzvak Balas. And he saw how the Jewish people fought against Amalek, not just the people of Amalek, but the message of Amalek. And what's the message of Amalek? Coldness, staying within limitations, to fight the forces that want to tell a person to leave limitations. And when he saw that, he left his own limitations and came to the desert. Obviously, we're just talking about bulletin points. All this is been edited by the Rebbe and nitfas and been printed in the Likutei Sichas Chelik Tezayin, volume 16, on page 192 further. So to read more about this Sicha, then one could study the Likutei Sichas chapter of volume 16. Now, the Rebbe continues. This is the part that's outside of the edition. The Rebbe says to add to this idea of what was so great about Yisro, that he had to leave his comfort zone in order to not just to convert. Convert, he heard other things. Because the question I think the Rebbe emphasizes in the Sicha is why specifically these two miracles, the splitting of the Red Sea and Amalek. There were other miracles. There's the 10 plagues. There's the leaving of Egypt. Why wasn't the leaving of Egypt inspiring to Yisro? Only the splitting of the Red Sea. Because in those two miracles was the idea of why he came here. He came to the desert because in the miracles he saw that there's an idea that you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to get out of your limitations. Splitting the Red Sea is out of the limitations of nature. And fighting Amalek is out of the limitations of being cold to excitement about Yiddishkeit. So now the Rebbe adds, Inyan hageris karach b'kushayim rabim. The Rebbe says to be a ger, to be a foreigner, meaning specifically in this case to be a person who converts to Yiddishkeit, is something that's karach, is wrapped in kashiyim rabim, in severe difficulties. K'de'isa b'yivamas, the Gemara tells us, ger shabali hiskayer, oimin lamari isa shabas liskayer. The Talmud teaches us in Yavamas that if when a ger, a convert, comes to convert, we tell him, what did you see? What inspired you to convert? We teach the person who wants to convert about some of the lighter mitzvahs and some of the more difficult, complicated mitzvahs. We let him or her know, it's not just good ideas. It comes with reward and punishment. So when a person shows that he or she wants to convert, there wasn't, therefore the Rebbe adds, that it wasn't enough for him to hear the miracles of splitting of the Red Sea and Amalek, because that would excite a person to come join the Jewish people. But he had to hear Kol Asher Asa, everything that happened to the Jewish people of Moshe, everything including the Torah mitzvah, what they're going to do, go take the Torah mitzvahs. Ubechlol same base kavim hamakas the Mitzrayim, the Benegay lebitul haklipas, la'azav hashleimish blumaza, Matan Torah Benegay leherge sheker Torah mitzvahs. The two things he had to listen to that were beyond the miracles. So that's why they say that it wasn't enough that he heard about the miracles of Kiryas Yamsuf. Again, so exactly the talk that the Rebbe spoke about, that's in volume 16. So we're going with a little less information. But the Rebbe says that the miracles alone of Kiryas Yamsuf and Mechamas Amalek, although it's out of the nature, but also that's not enough for a person to convert, because that's miraculous. It's exciting to be part of the winning team. But he had to also hear about the idea of the Makas Mitzrayim. What does it mean, the plagues of Egypt? That there's idea of Bitul HaKlipos, that the idea is you can't stick with Klipa. We know that Yisro was a Kohen Midian. He was a priest. It says he served every single one of the 70 Asarim, the 70 angels that represent the 70 nations under Paroi. Paroi was a world leader. And Yisro knew how to manipulate the energies. It wasn't like he was just bowing down. He was a kohen. He had this tremendous power of klipa. Klipa has power. Like Moshe was scared to go to Paroi. God has to tell him, "Boy, Paroi, I'll come with you." Paroi was a big klipa, so he has to know that Makas Mitzrayim means you have to leave the klipos. You can't stay with klipa with negative forces. La'azav hashleimish b'lumazah. You have to leave. That there's certain things that comes with shleimus, a certain completion, certain benefits you get from serving the sides of klipa. Because Klipa also has power to give. The 70 Sarim give blessings. And Yisro knew how to manipulate those blessings, as the Bitul Rebbe says. But he had to leave that all. Matan Torah, and he had to go to Torah. He has to, if he wants to really convert, he has to understand and appreciate what it means to serve Hashem through Torah mitzvahs. One is to leave the avodah zarah and the klipa and all that klipa gives you, and also to understand the importance of Torah mitzvahs. Ilu Yisro lehayi shemaya edis makas the Mitzrayim. Afilu hu hayi shemaya kol sharon yonim kshakadosh baruch hu as Yisrael lehayi davar poilas les inyan hageres b'shleimus. If Yisro, we've not heard about that, along with this everything that happened, that the Jew that in the process it broke the klipa of Lumasev, the other side, and all he would have heard about it was the miracles. That would not have been a complete level of conversion. Then he could have been hedging his bets. What's shitav? Shitav means coexistence. I like God, and I also like a klipa. Klipa also gives me benefits. That's the idea of shitav. Shitav means you're combining two ideas: the miracles of God and the benefits of avodah zarah. He realizes and holds on. Oiches means holds on to God and holiness. He combines that with avodah zarah. Avodah zarah doesn't just mean the physical bowing down. It's all that comes with it, all that's but behind it. Avodah zarah it runs deep to the core of society up until this day. So you want to be like Eliyahu says, you can't be on the fence, either you're with God or avodah zarah. Not sure why it's hard to open up for anyone. Hold on. Because he could have said, okay, God is holy and special, but avodah zarah klipa also has value. Okay, granted, it's not as special as holiness, but it also has useful. So therefore, you mashatev, you combined it. What convinced Yisro to leave everything of the oneself, the other side, not to hold on to any of it, not to try to hedge his bets at all, but to say, I want to be totally connected to Hashem. He recognized that's not that he wants that there's two things. That really Ummah is a facade, it's not real. There is no real force. Although theoretically you could manipulate energies, but that's all forces of evil, it's not real. It's a kind of energy that the 70 nations get from the 70 sarim that represent each nation. It's not real. It's not a metzius. That really Hashem is everything. There's nothing else but Hashem. And that's why it wasn't enough for him to see the splitting of the Red Sea, as valuable that was, and the war of Amalek, like we said, to break the coldness and to get out of nature, of natural. But he also had to hear how Mitzrayim, the klipa of Mitzrayim, the klipa of Le'umazah, of the forces of evil were broken. It's not real, and therefore he had to leave everything to come totally clean to Hashem, without any shituf, without any backup plan, without any combination of things. Not enough was it for Yisro to leave the negative. He also has to hear the positive. When he heard that there's going to be Matan Torah, because according to most opinions, Yisro came before Matan Torah. The Rebbe says, according to the opinion, if Yisro came after Matan Torah, but if you want to say, according to the opinion, that Yisro heard that came to Moshe before Matan Torah, that's how the verses are laid out. That Yisro first comes to Moshe, and then we have the story of Matan Torah. So you can't say he heard about the holiness of Matan Torah. It didn't happen yet. He came because he heard the Jewish people are going to receive the Torah. That's why he came, to be part of that experience. Because the whole reason they left Egypt was to receive the Torah. Like it says, when I take the people out of Egypt, you have to come serve God, meaning to receive the Torah. The leaving of Egypt, was not just to leave Egypt, to get out, but to start something, to start Tavdin. Tavdin means to be servants of God. And how are we servants of God? Through Har Hazeh, through this mountain, which is Matan Torah. So Yisro knew that he's going to not just leaving Parai and the Makkos, the destruction of Le'umasa, but going to something of holy, of Torah mitzvahs. Means there's both the level of the awesomeness of out of space, the awesomeness of splitting the Red Sea, Amalek, and then there's the grounded leaving, you have to, it means a person can be overwhelmed by a miracle, but that you're going to hold on to all the avodah zaras in your life. So you have to actually ground it in leaving everything of l'umasa and taking on Torah mitzvahs. That's the grounded part. That's the internally. That's in apnimius, taking it in internally, not just basking in the experience of a miracle. And that's why Yisro had to hear all four things: the splitting of the Red Sea, the war of Amalek, the destruction of Egypt, and the Matan Torah, and the fact that the Jewish people are either received or about to receive the Torah. It's Bishul Matan Torah. The Kabbalah Torah, because of his great desire. That's why the Rebbe is saying it's hard to be a ger. To be overwhelmed by miracles, that's one thing. But to change your whole life and priorities, that's something very difficult. And the Kabbalah Torah, because he had a great desire and yearning to receive Torah. The Jewish people counted from leaving Egypt the 49 days of the Omer. The counting of the Omer. So recognizing that this is something that's going to be very special. The Jewish people thought it was special, and so too, of course, the hold on a second. That Yisro agreed with that. The Rebbe says, this is all when it comes to when we're talking about the idea of conversion. Avamash shmua shama oba. So the Rebbe says that's why he converted. What does it mean to convert? To leave. Every time I'm having this issue, is to leave the umazeh, to leave avodah zara, and to accept Torah. But that he could have done that in Midian. What made him come here to the desert? El Hamidbar, Eretz Sia, a land of destitute, land of no water, a land that you're walking in the desert. He could have stayed in Midian and said, "Oh, there's a God. Let me wait and I'll catch up on the Torah. I'm leaving avodah zara, but I want to stay in my own house." Why did he leave his house? Why did he come to the desert? He could have converted in his own house in Midian. He left back to his house. Why do you have to go to the desert in the first place? The guy's name is Mishpachte, and he converted his family. And we don't find that he brought his family to the desert. He went to convert his family there in Midian. So he himself could have converted and stayed in Midian. That's the second stage. The idea to become a ger himself, that was the idea of leaving Mitzrayim, of leaving what Mitzrayim represent, the idea that the breaking of the 10 plagues, breaking the klipa of Mitzrayim, and accepting the Torah. That's the gerus, that's the conversion. But what made him come to the desert? That was the second set of miracles, the second set of inspiration that came from the miracle of the splitting of the Red Sea and the war of Amalek. When he saw the splitting of the Red Sea, and there's no longer a limitation, that this is water, this is dry land, this is Yam, and this is Yabasha, this is the dry land, and there's a separation. And he saw that the Jewish people would not subscribe and allow for energies that cool a person to get out of the limitations, which is what Amalek is. Amalek is to cool people's, like relax everyone. I get there's miracles. Doesn't mean you have to get so excited about it, right? Amalek means cool, to cool everything down. As the Rebbe explained before in the Sicha at length, the reason why he had to come to the desert, because although he was ready to convert, knowing of the miracles of the 10 plagues, the breaking of the klipa of Amalek, and that the Torah is about to come, or it came, is still he hasn't totally left the other side, the lu'umazeh, the opposite side, the side of impurities. It would have affected his conversion. Why? Because he's not ready to get uncomfortable for God. He's ready to change his life. I want to stay in my house. I'll kasher my kitchen, man. I want it to be my kitchen. I don't want to have to leave. You want me to leave everything and go to the desert? That's too much. He had things of his past life that he wanted to stay in. Okay, my house is, I'm gonna put 2 beds in my bedroom, whatever it is. I'm gonna do all the things I have to do in Torah. But I want it to be in my own space that I always had. But when he comes to the desert, he totally left the other side. This elevated his conversion to the highest level. He took both sides. That he had, one is the idea of that there was the klip of Mitzrayim, and also the idea of internalizing through Torah. He brought it all to holiness. Not only that, he adds to Torah. He adds a parsha into Torah. He's the one who teaches Moshe about the judicial system. And he adds also in his good deeds. What does it mean, Ma'asim Tovim? The Rebbe always says that his actions shouldn't just be actions, but his actions should be bright, good and bright, meaning that it's alive. It's like a person polishes. I have a coin, I have a stone, but it's rough, it's dirty, it's there. But no, it has to be me'irim, it has to be beautiful and shining. From before B'drush Megillas Esther is explained in the talks of Esther. The Rebbe says like this: why does he have to hear about a Malek after he hears about Kriyas Yamsuf? Once you know that there's an idea of getting out of your limitations, that the sea doesn't have to stay the sea, and the dry, everything can be mixed up. There's no rules. You could get out of any kind of hagbalas. Why does he have to hear about a Malek also? Who cares about a Malek? The Rebbe says, even after he hears about the miracle of splitting the Red Sea, breaking limitations, and he knows he knows that the only true way to be a receptacle of Torah is not just to make a pivot in your mind, but to mamish get out of your limitations. Torah means to get out of the limitations of oilam, of helam, of teva, and he sees that with the splitting of the Red Sea. Therefore he goes to a destitute desert. Adain ba Malik v'toyin, so Malik comes to Yisro and says, Mi oimer shedavka ata tzarech leilcha midbar. Who says, okay, I get it that someone has to be in the desert. Why does it have to be you? Here the Rebbe is teaching 1962 in a subtle message, right? We have to do, what's the Rebbe saying in this message? What's the underline over here? Get out of your comfort zone. Go do things, not about, go out to the desert of the world. You want to stay, you want to open up a chumash, you want to open up a Sefer Chassidus, but you want to stay in your four spaces of safe space, in Brooklyn, in Yerushalayim. Go out to the world, go out to the desert, go out to the place, change. Don't be limited, but feel that the only way you could serve God is if you're in a safe space. So splitting the Red Sea showed you that Torah means get out of your limitations. So Malik says, I get it. Someone has to go out there. Who says it's you? Adayim ba Malik v'toyin. Comes a Malik, and what does the Malik tell to Yisro? To the person who says, we have to go out of our limitations for Torah. It's not enough again, it's not just talking, we're not just talking to Yisro the convert. We're talking to the convert of every person who converts from one way of thinking to become a person of God, but you want to stay in your own comfort space. You don't want to go become vulnerable for God, go out to the desert. So Amalek comes and says, I get it. But who says you have to go to the desert? Don't worry about it. You want that there should be someone out there in the desert? There's 600,000 Jews there. Men from the age of 20 to 60, never mind the children and the elders and the women. Don't worry about great people also. They have good leadership. It's okay. They have Moshe there. They have Aaron there. And that's enough for Matan Torah to happen. That they're there. Don't worry. Someone will send you the Torah too. Let them be in the place. Yes, for the Torah to come to this world, we have to show to get out of our comfort zone. We have to go to the desert. But you don't have to be in the desert. There's enough people in the desert for the Torah to happen. And you'll stay in your comfort zone, in your house, in your bed, and the Torah will make its way to you. Wait a week and someone will send you a telegram. All the Jewish people were there. It says the ones that were alive and those who were not yet alive. It's brought down the Medrash. Even converts that later will convert, their souls are at Matan Torah. Everyone's at Matan Torah. Your spirit was there. Someone, you have a representative there. But you specifically have to pack your bags and go to the desert. You have to leave your land, your birthplace, to go to a desert. The idea of what's needed in the desert is being done by someone else. Why do you have to go? That's what a Malik Tain is. Malik's arguments are always about results. A Malik is, you could learn from me, you could analyze a Malik and really understand how important it is about how much things have to get done, and then how you have to be the person to do it. Why? Because anything that Amalek claims, Amalek is fighting Kedusha. Anything they're saying is the opposite of Kedusha. So if they come and say that it's okay that there's 600,000 in the desert, you don't have to go to the desert, that means you have to go to the desert. Because obviously, what do they care so much? Because that's the tachlis. They will teach you where the essence is. Because if they're telling you it's good to be at home, then you know you got to pack your bags. Not only that, Yisro was also, there was another reason for Yisro to be concerned. How am I going to be accepted when I come to the Midbar? Yisro was a Kohen Midyan. He was part of the decree of Mitzrayim. He was there. What kind of greeting are they going to give him? How do we know that Yisro was concerned of how they're going to accept him? He didn't just show up. He gave notice. Right? Rashi says he gives notice, come, I'm coming. If that's not good enough, your wife is coming. And if that's not good enough, your children are coming. He sends a message, I'm your Yisro, your father, I'm coming. Ima, your two children with her. The Rashi says, like I said, if it's not b'schus, if you don't want to come and greet me, greet your wife. If that's not enough, greet your children. Amalek's point is, it's not important what the argument is. Just cool down. Relax. Don't pack your bags about it. Sleep on it. Amalek, again, is all about stopping results. Stop, don't get excited, don't do. Doesn't have to be you. The Rebbe says he spoke about in the Farbrengen of Shabbos Parshas B'Shalach, which we learn about Amalek. In this statement from the Rebbe Rashab, the fifth Rebbe Chabad, Shem Dov Besh Nersen. What happens when a person gets excited about a miracle that's a private miracle to you, or a miracle that happens in the world? Maschel Amalek Lita, so what does Amalek say right away? See, Amalek is such a manipulator. Nothing's changed in the narrative of the world. How do you know? The narratives are never important about the argument itself. We have to know what's the real agendas. That you shouldn't do anything. Don't act on it. So what's Amalek come and say? What's the Rebbe Shab say? That a person gets excited about a miracle, Amalek says, 1 second, a Yid, you're a Chassid. Seichel de Kedusha, if you have a holy intellect, you're getting excited about miracles? God is greater than miracles. Why are you getting so excited about miracles? Why does one of you excited? God can do anything. If you really believe in God, what's such a big deal that he did a miracle? He runs the whole world. Again, Malak doesn't care to say the most extreme things about God. As long as you don't get it, you don't act on it. That's his agenda. Don't get excited, don't act, don't pack your bags, don't run to the desert. And not only that, Amalek is not even saying a lie. Because that's true. He's not supposed to spilus. Spilus is not something that's praised in Chassidus to get excited. Why? Because Hashem is a kol yochel. To God, the world of Atzilus and the world of Asiya creation is all the same. Like we learned many times. God doesn't get grasped by anything, no miracle. As is explained in the Basilagani Mamarim, I don't change. Although God provides for every creation, from the lice, not even the lice, the nits, anything of creation, God provides for all of them. Every creation gets what it needs according to its needs. Any nitvis that you can't grasp God in that. When a person usually invests in something, she's captured by that. God is effective without being captured in the moment. God knows everything. There's no information. He can't get it. He's spileless, excitement. He knows it anyways. Like we learned in the Maimorim of Noach and Bereshis. That's how one of the answers. How there is evil in the world. Because God is not in the evil. He could create something which he doesn't get, he's not grasped by anything. He's not grasped by evil either. He can't be defined by the fact that evil exists, even though it comes from him. What it means it comes from him? Because everything comes from God. Based on all this, what's Amalek telling Yisro? Kain Amalek, and Amalek comes and says, "Kishem shemakim lispal b'nyani ra, v'chinis beitzei kinim shem eses firs deklipa." This sake, you can't get excited. Don't get overwhelmed or depressed by negative things in the world, because it doesn't mean anything. Don't get excited about the greatest creations. Just be equal. Just like nothing gets everything by God. There's a shavius, means everything's equal. God's not more excited about Atzilus than Asiya. You also don't get excited about anything. If that's the case, what are you getting so excited about Kriyas Yamsuf? About the splitting of the Red Sea? If you want to rate and say, wow, God split the Red Sea, who cares if God split the Red Sea? God could do anything. So what are you getting so excited about? And from the coldness of Amalek, Amalek got you. Once they cool you down, they're not satisfied with that, because at the end of the day, they're all about separating you from Hashem. So they start off with holy arguments. And then from the coldness comes the doubt. Maybe there wasn't really a miracle in the first place. Shemata's faith, you start having doubt. Hold on, guys, it's just not sure. I can't get this to work. He gives suffix, he gives doubt. He's so destructive, Amalek, that Hashem says, my name is not complete, my chair is not complete. The effects that a person shouldn't perform on Torah mitzvahs at all. That's his bottom line. It starts off with not getting excited. If I'm not getting excited, he wants that you should leave Torah mitzvahs altogether. And Yisro thought about those things, the Rebbe says. It wasn't like Amalek said something. Yisro also considered Amalek's arguments. What's Yisro's background? He was from Paro's advisors. The Gemara says so in Sanhedrin. Why would Paro appoint him as an advisor? He had to be qualified. He had a Ma'ilib Seichel. He was a very smart person. And Seichel is coldness. It's brought down, and not exactly sure the details, in Sifri Chasidus and Kabbalah, that there's an essential connection between Paro, Yisro, and Amalek. Ki Pari Isis Araf. Pari means, take the letter of the words of Pari, which is Pei, Reish, Ayin, Hey, and you could make it Ha'aref, which means the back of the neck. Amalek Humilashin Umalek Arpai. Amalek is also from the word Amalek. We know it's called Malika when they would sacrifice the birds in the temple. It's called Malika because they didn't slaughter from the front of the neck, which is how we make how we shech the chicken, let's say a bird, but from the back of the neck. So that's called Malika, which is Amalek. The Yisro Humi Yaitzi Paro, and Yisro was the advisors of Paro. So Amalek, Paro, and Yisro are all in theory together. And therefore, it's possible that with notwithstanding, with all Yisro's new commitments to Torah mitzvahs, if he didn't see that the Jewish people are not subscribing, that part of it being Jewish means that we do not allow for Amalek to exist. Amalek, the idea of Amalek, of coldness, of doubt, of all the different arguments. The bottom line is, don't get excited about God. That's not part of Yiddishkeit. And Yisro, which was a Baal Seichel, which means he was an intellectual, when he saw that the Jewish people went to fight Amalek, he realized that how does he fight his own instincts of being an intellectual was to go to the desert. Had it not been the fight of Amalek, he never would have went to the desert. Even though he knew that there has to be a getting out of your comfort zone and there's no limitations, but he could have said someone else could do it. Why do I have to do it? Right? If you're a big intellectual, you think to yourself, do I have to be the one to go put on all this clothing and pack my bags and my donkey and go out to the desert? I'm an old man already. But when you hear And he hears that the Jewish people fought Amalek, that we don't subscribe to that message. We don't subscribe to that instinct. We don't subscribe to that coldness. But he was affected by that. That's the greatness of Yisro. We see the greatness of Yisro was that he didn't just go against what he knew. He went against his nature as a Baal Seichel, as an intellectual. He acted contrary to his nature. Because when he saw the Mechamas and Malek, he knew that's not how he's supposed to be. He came to the Midbar, and the Rebbe's obvious lesson to us is how much more so. Each and every one of us have to not sit there with all. There's many arguments in the world to not get excited or not go out to the desert of life. It doesn't have to mean that you have to actually pack your bags, but go out to places of the uncomfortable. Go out there, tell people about tefillin, about Rambam, about Shabbos candles, about being Jewish, being the 7 mitzvahs of Noach. Came out to the desert of the world, Midbar Amim, the Kiblas of Torah, and there he went to go get the Torah, not to get it in his own house. And only then he goes to his back home after he's become a transformed person, not just in theory and not just in ideas, but also in the idea of his instincts, of his nature, of being a Baal Seichel. Then he could be affected in Midyon as another person. The Rebbe continues, this is the first Sicha, powerful talk. The Rebbe says, based on what we said before, this idea that we're describing, the greatness of Yisro, shows us that there's an idea of going from place to place. Meaning, although when you're on the road, going from place to place, you don't have the storm. You can't have the same schedule that you have when you're in your house, because your house you already mapped out your schedule to meet the environment that you're comfortable with. But now you're on the road. Everyone knows you're on the road. Every night your diet goes down the drain. Hopefully you try to keep your shiurim barely, right? Everything's much harder when you're on the road. It's harder to do mitzvahs. Again, it's harder to make sure to go to shul. You have to start finding shuls, start mitzvah. Everything becomes more difficult. Where do you find this more than Avram Avinu? Avram Avinu shlefisha derech memates amamin memates Hashem lekach chuzuk l'shleishus brachas halol v'eschel gai gadol. God blessed Avram when he told him lech lecha, because traveling lessens the person. It's brought down. Rashi quotes that it lessens memates amamin. It costs money, right? You're spending every night in a hotel is expensive. Every night eating out is expensive. Travel costs. You memat Hashem. You're no longer the same person you were. You see people, it's not the same when you see them in their zone. You see a certain stolz, you see a certain roimimus. On the road, they become vulnerable. So God had to promise him that he'll recover from his travels. And the Rebbe says that Avram Avinu but a person can't imagine that's going to happen. You can't say that, oh, God is going to miraculously change me for my travels. Travels has effect. That's natural. But what's the Rebbe's point? But there's something to say about the idea of being on the road. And that is, the Rebbe says, Yisro, we see, like we said before, had to come on the road to get the Torah. Again, he could have been more in his zone. You could argue even deeper. He could have been in his zone, because on the road, you're not at your full potential. Jet lag, you're tired, again, all the things. But nevertheless, he went to the desert. And Moshe went to Moshe, the man of God. The Rebbe says this is what it means that it's brought down in the Sfarim. Bichlach means the Sfarim. That God says to Moshe after the war of Amalek that Kosev Zois Zikaron, write this as a memory, b'sefer in a book. V'sim ba'ozni Yeshua, and put by the ear of Joshua. Shenoisev alexiva b'sefer. It's not enough to write something. Huchachlius v'sim ba'ozni Yeshua. You have to put it by his ear. What does that mean? L'chura moving. Seemingly, one could ask the question: Hare tzivu kosev zois zikaron b'sefer ha'yiv negei l'chol b'nei Yisrael koil gam Yeshua. When God said to write what Amalek did, to put it in a book, because when you print it, it becomes more factual. Because when you start telling over the story by verbally, People are like, yeah, that's not exactly how it went down. I was there, Amalek, but they didn't really mean it. The Jews started the fight, right? It wasn't really, it was not the offense, it was not defense, it was an offensive. How dare they have attacked Amalek? Amalek was just trying to attack them. What they want from them, right? We know all those stories, how the narrative changes very fast from October 7th. So you have to write it in a sefer. You have to write it, this is the way it happened. So but why wasn't it enough just to write in the sefer? Yeshua also could read the sefer. Vim came, Sefer Torah, where's it in the sefer? It was in the Torah. The Torah tells us what Amalek did. There's no mixing around the narrative of what happened. Amalek is evil and he went to attack the Jews. And God says it, it's an action. So it's going to be written properly. Why do you have to put it in the ear of Joshua? So the Holy Baal Shem Tov teaches. There's still a value of hearing something than reading something. In order to really penetrate Joshua, it has to be in the book. But that alone is not enough. What does it mean? The Rebbe is saying, what's the Baal Shem Tov saying? A person could say, why do I have to travel to a Rebbe? The Rebbe Sicha, Baruch Hashem, comes Matzah Shabbos. By Sunday morning, Monday, they're going to print the Sicha, and I'll read it in my house. I could listen to the audio. Someone's going to come back from the travels of the Rebbe, and he's going to bring Chazara. Why do I have to travel somewhere? People travel. Jewish people travel. We will go to Yerushalayim. I have to go to Yerushalayim. The Torah is here. I have Torah in the book. So the Rebbe says, the Baal Shem Tov teaches that from the fact that Yeshua had to hear it with his own ears, it wasn't enough for it to be in the writing. It's the whole importance of the writing to make it factual. But you have to travel to go sometimes to listen to the Rebbe, to hear it, to be there. Sometimes you have to get it in on the road with all its minuses, of all its negativities of being on the road, so you could actually hear the word of God itself. Yisro could have also got the publications in the mail, but he came to actually come to hear it from Moshe himself. And sometimes that's what takes the person. It's not only the message. Again, there's the two values here. There's what's in the message, and there's also the value of actually hearing the message as it's being given over from the Ish Alikim, from Moshe Rabbeinu. This is what the Alter Rebbe writes in Tanya, in the beginning of Tanya. The oral Torah, the written Torah of Chassidus, which the Tanya is. That the Alter Rebbe writes, that's not enough to hear Divrei Musar. Or you can't compare, sorry to say, the words of Musa, the words of what's being told to you as if reading in the book. The Alter Rebbe writes in Akdama to Tanya, because when you read it in a book, everyone's mind is different and they take the text a little differently. You have to go to the person who's able to speak to you, because once it's in the book, it's the words. So again, there's the value of the book that protects the message, but on top of that is the value of actually listening to it. Because when you hear the person talking to you, although you could have read the message, the person talking to you, the Rebbe writes this in Tanya, is to hear it as that person is communicating the message to you. The people who go from place to place, even though it's difficult to travel, and the lessons in things in Torah mitzvahs. To come to a Rebbe, the Rebbe means. You could have heard what someone else tells you. Michtav, you could read a letter. Mivra, you could get a telegram. You could get a telephone. God could get the message to you many ways. But Sam ba'ozna Yeshua, ki eine daime peulas hakriya besfarim lepeulas anasa de shmiya mamish. When mer hert das allein von Eden. When you hear exactly as the tzaddik, the Rebbe tells you the message. We're going to stop here. I think the Rebbe continues in this Fabrengen. He talks about that the Fabrengen, we have 3 minutes, we'll just do this little paragraph. The Rebbe says there's 3 unique people who came to the Fabrengen. The Rebbe is talking about coming to the Rebbe. If you look at footnote number 37, it says Yesh L'Tzayin, this Fabrengen, Shabbos Yisro, 1964, was a Rav Hatamim and Rav Chassid Mendel Futfas. don't know if anyone remembers or heard of Mendel Futerfas, a great chassid who spent 10 years, I believe, in Siberia, a long time in Siberia, alone. His family was already in England, and he got out of Russia for his work. He was in Siberia for his work on behalf of Torah and Torah mitzvahs and setting up schools and mikvahs, etc. He just got out of Russia in 1964. And there's also Rav Tam Rav Chassid Rabbi Yisrael Nachman Koyin. He also got out of Russia many years before. And then at that Fabring, and there was also the Rebbe had a chassid that was very dear to him in England. His name was Reb Shneir Zalman Yafi, the Yafi family in Manchester. The Rebbe says he was never in Russia. The Rebbe says there's three types of Jews here. There's those who are still in their 12 months, meaning the 12 months Rav Mendel Futerfas. Rav Mendel Futerfas just got out of Russia. He's still within 12 months. That he was in a place and still in 1964. A lot of Jews were behind the Iron Curtain, where still our brothers are left in captivity. And they're still standing with self-sacrifice. But they're still walking around as Chassidim. Not exactly sure what that means. That I guess they were still in the situation of fear of what was going on in Russia for their own lives. Okay, so there's the people that were in Russia and they knew the message of Russia, they knew the fear of Russia. The Soviet Union. There are those. They're never in such a situation. There are those who were once in Russia, but they left many years ago, so they're no longer fearful, scared. Oh, I'm going to go back before. The Rebbe says, meaning the Rebbe Futerfas was walking around his whole life. He walked around like a Russian immigrant. He had a casket. He was a big chassid, a big Talmud Chacham. He walked around. He never wore a hat. He didn't wear a shtreimel. He could have wore a shtreimel more than 99.99% of people in the whole world that wear shtreimels and hats. He walked around with a casket, with a Russian cap. And the Rebbe says he's still wearing the same clothing of an immigrant. The Rebbe says kind of, and I'm not sure if he means people are fearful of him, or there's still the fear. You know that the communists came chasing the Chassidim even afterwards. The Rebbe says there's those who were never in a difficult place. They only heard about it. They live in the land of Asher. Right, we have Nidachim Be'eretz Mitzrayim and the Asher, which is the land of plenty. This is Reb Zalman Yafi lived in England, which was a place of abundance. And so Rebbe says it's impossible to say that the wealth and the broadness of Asher doesn't have an effect on a person. Some who came out a few years ago. They're kind of in between, kind of memories of how bad it was, but getting used to the good life now. God should have pity on them and get them out of their fear of the past, to have true achava. The Rebbe was talking then specifically about the communities of Kfar Chabad that were mostly immigrants from Russia. The Rebbe talks about, and in continuation we have to stop here, that this was a Tzeis Chum L'Shalom to Chassidim that came to visit the Rebbe to talk about Divrei Torah and Divrei Yisro. I have to leave now, and have a wonderful Shabbos, everyone. And Be'ez Hashem, again, we have a class in Halachim with the story of the Baal Shem Tov, Motzei Shabbos Kodesh, this week at the same time. Laila Tov and a good Shabbos.
Thank you, Rabbi.